All join palms. And repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Keeping the palms joined. Put the palms down. All right, good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all here. Thanks for showing up. Yeah, it's interesting. I had a bit of a pause. Even for me, it was kind of odd as I was doing my offering. And, for those who don't know or haven't heard me talk about this before, that's just something for me I do as a formal ritual practice for myself. And then obviously I invite anybody who wants to join in as well, can do it as well. Some people follow along, some people have no idea what it is, some people wonder like, why am I joining my palms, it was weird. I had this like, all of a sudden, which is funny too, because when I die, I want to be cremated. So I'm not going to like go into the ground. There's not going to be like a tombstone. But I had this really crazy like moment just now, and I don't usually have things like this. And even when I do, I don't usually sit down and share them. But now that I'm this far into it, I'm just going to continue. But I was like, I think I've just been staring at a computer too long. But like, as I was doing that, I almost saw like, I don't know if it was like the movies do it or TVs do it or Instagram does it or like all of the above. But as I was doing my offerings, I literally saw like on my tombstone, I take refuge in the Buddha being like typed out. It's Instagram, right? Like if it's a song, it like plays the lyrics out, right? So I saw like, I take refuge in the Buddha, and then I like paused. I'm like, wow, that was weird because I just saw that being written on my tombstone. And then I take refuge in the Dharma, and I saw it again. And then I was like, oh, this is still happening. This is kind of cool. And then I did the third one. I take refuge in the Sangha. And all of a sudden, I was like, I just saw all three on my tombstone. And then my next thought was like, well, now maybe I'm going to have to be buried because I'm going to want a tombstone that says the triple gem on there. So apparently I need to update my will and estates, But and then and this all happened super fast. I mean, that's all very quick. So, and then it hit me. I'm like, wow, these three things are, I mean, I know this and I do that multiple times a day, but those three things are really powerful for me. And for Buddhist practice, these things are really powerful. And even though it kind of starts out for many people as just these things you recite, and some of you in the room don't even know what they are. But just to walk through them briefly, and then maybe we'll talk more later before we sit. But the word refuge, right? I'm going to shorten this and not make it a longer talk right now, but refuge, right? So I take refuge in safety. To me, refuge is safety. It's comfort, it's protection, it's shelter, right? That's what refuge is. And the Buddha. So you're not taking refuge in the Buddha himself. He died 2,500 years ago. He's gone. He cannot help you. No offense to him, but he can't help you right now. You're on your own. And to take refuge in the Buddha really is taking refuge in what's called bodhicitta, or Buddha nature. So you're taking refuge in the idea, in the simple practice, and the teachings that the Buddha was human, suffered, and figured out how to end his suffering. We take refuge in bodhicitta, the same Buddha nature that the Buddha had, we have. Meaning just a human, wakes up, eats, sleeps, goes to the bathroom, the same things we all do. So I find a lot of refuge knowing that if one person could end their suffering, it's also possible for me. Although to be fair, I don't ever think I'm going to end my suffering. I just focus on, can I suffer less today than I did yesterday? And if I do that, I'm good. The second one is the Dharma, the teachings. This is what the Buddha taught. Loving kindness, compassion, joy, equanimity, generosity, morality, patience, all these things you always hear us talk about week in and week out, day in and day out. Like finding comfort in knowing that if you put these practices into your life absolutely will change. And that's very inspiring. It inspires me every single day to know that if I continue to practice this every moment, then my life will continue to change. And that's motivating. It's inspiring. Right? And the third one is the Sangha. And at the time of the Buddha, the Sangha was the community, the practitioners that came together, the monks, and then the nuns, and the lay people, and the animals, right? Deer Park, and everywhere else. So you find comfort in everybody that you practice with. And that, to me, is inspiring. I mean, I talk about this a lot, but, day in and day out, I show up because you're all here. I mean, if none of you were here, I'd still show up, but at church, that wouldn't be as much fun, But that's inspiring to be in and around a community of people that challenge you, that question you, that, make you be the best version of yourself that you can be. And to hold yourself accountable, that's really important, I mean, a lot of you I've known for years, and some of you I've known for all of 5 minutes, and you're still trying to figure out, what is this dude even talking about, right? But I have to hold myself accountable because of you. Even though I talk day in and day out, and I always say we're not the teachers and you're not the students, and I truly mean that, I still know that people show up here and you're there and I'm here, and I know what that means to most people. And I have to respect that. I have to not abuse that. I have to not take advantage of that. I have to not use the power that comes with somebody who sits up here. And that's inspiring to me. So the triple gem, as it's called, taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, it really is life-changing. It's not about being Buddhist. I mean, I'm Jewish day in and day out, and I take refuge in the triple gem every single day because it just makes my life better. And if I make my life better, then I can create better space for the people around me. So, yeah. I'll still be cremated, but maybe we'll just have a little, something next to it. So, if I forget to update my will stuff, somebody just let them know, please. All right, so we'll start with the meditation practice. For those who might be brand new, a couple things I'll tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Right? Don't judge your practice. I mean, you don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on a cushion, often it helps slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward, allows the back to straighten. If you're on a bench or chair, same thing, just sitting up straight, relaxing the shoulders. Hands are on the knees or lap. If you need to move, simply move. Doesn't make you a bad meditator. Just means your leg hurts. I'll guide us as we begin. And we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open, mouth open or closed. Start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus, to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgments from the practice. Just sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddhist awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where you come from, or what you believe in, or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens. More reactions. That's it. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond every other 20-minute period of your day. So all we're working on is closing the gap where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. practice is not easy. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people think it is. Most of us have had enough escapes our entire lives. This is direct perception into the present moment and learning to be with life as it arises. And that can be difficult because life as it arises is not always so pleasant. But that's what we get. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. Sitting, breathing, learning to be kind to yourself and everybody else you encounter every moment of your life. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, and we work on changing our mind and our reaction to the world around us, life gets simpler. But it is a practice. It never changes. It doesn't get easier. If anything, it gets harder. Very often people will be brand new to Buddhist practice, and by brand new I mean, like 3-4 years in. And they're like, well, how come this is, I don't get it. I'm supposed to be happy by now. Am I doing it wrong? This stuff is not easy. And for me, when I say it gets more challenging, what I mean by that is it's really easy for, I don't want to offend anyone in the room here, but it's really easy for myself and many people I know to be just greedy, angry, miserable, mean people all day long and treat ourselves and others like crap and be selfish, ignore the world, think your problems are the only ones that matter. It's really easy to do all of that. And this practice helps you realize that that's not what it's about. And when you begin to wake up and realize that your life is equally important as others, and others' lives are as equally important as yours. It's not about others being more or less important than us, but that no other life is less important than ours. And to practice this is really difficult. So early on, it seems like, oh, it's going to be fun. I'm going to do this Buddhist thing. I'm going to get happy. And then you start to realize why you're unhappy. And then you have to do the work. And then you have to make changes. And how many of you like to make changes? Right? Especially with the one thing that we've been stuck with our entire lives, and that's ourselves. And for many people, again, I'm sure nobody in this room, but for many people, it's a lot easier to just say all of our problems, all of our misery, all of our sadness, all our stress, all our anger, all our anxiety, all our depression. It's a lot easier to just say it's everybody else's fault. Because we've been doing that most of our lives. And this practice is waking up and saying, no, sorry, folks. It is mine. I own it. I created my misery. Nobody else. And you know why that's beautiful? Because if you created your misery, you can end it. If all of our happiness and joy was contingent upon other people and places and things, that would suck. Because then we'd spend our whole lives thinking that other people, places, or things are going to make us happy. Oh, wait, maybe that's the problem. It's very liberating to realize that you have everything in the world that you need right now to be perfectly happy and at peace. Like everything. The question is, how long are you going to wait till you wake up to that? So, with that, I'll pause. For me, I always really just prefer to respond to questions anyways. Meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. To those joining virtually, my apologies. I didn't welcome you at the beginning. Thanks for not throwing things at the screen, although maybe you did and I just didn't see it. But if you have any questions, there's a chat box there, as you see. feel free to just say hello or throw any questions you have in the chat box, and I'll do my best to respond to them as well. So we'll just open up to questions, thoughts, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with.
How do you handle distractions?
How do I handle distractions? You know, for me, when I look at even just my initial response of distraction, like my initial response is there is no such thing as a distraction. There are just things happening. Right? The Buddhist practice of right concentration, the Eightfold Path. And what's interesting is, without walking through all of that right now, you can get it all on Google for free. But you look at the Eightfold Path, right? First noble truth, life is suffering. Doesn't mean all of life sucks. It just means we're going to struggle a lot. Second noble truth is the cause, greed, anger, ignorance. So we practice generosity, compassion, and wisdom. The third noble truth is the cessation, the ending of suffering. And the fourth is the path. And the Buddha said there's 8 steps. Like, that's it. 8 steps we have to do. Correct views, thoughts, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness. And the last one is concentration. Now, the funny thing is, which this all has nothing to do with your question, but the funny thing is, most people think concentration, meditation is the practice. But the Eightfold Path actually goes in order. And on that list, where is it? Views, thoughts, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration. It's what? Last. What do most people start out with when they come into Buddhist practice? They make that first. Right? One of my favorite expressions is an angry person who meditates is just an angry meditator. Right? So you have to do all those other things first. Work on morality, work on your speech, work on your thoughts, work on your actions, and then sit. But to your question of distractions, concentration is just being aware of what's happening in each moment. So, for example, if I'm talking to you and someone over here was like throwing stuff at me, right? It's not a distraction. It's just what's happening. So let's say I'm talking to you, and then all of a sudden you're all throwing stuff at me. And now I am responding to you throwing stuff at me. But you want to talk to me. Well, now you wanting to talk to me would be perceived as the distraction to them throwing stuff at me. There's no difference. You can only focus on one thing at one point in time. So if you're, again, the common view would be, well, if I'm working and the TV's on, the TV's a distraction. It's not a distraction, it's just what's on, and you're choosing to focus on that or this. So I get kind of the idea of things distracting us, but there are no distractions. There's just our ability to focus on one thing at one point in time. The TV is not distracting me from my work. I'm just focused on my TV, while my work is over here trying to distract me from my TV. So, yeah. Thanks. What else? Yeah.
How did the Buddha suggest one cultivates discipline?
Discipline. How did the Buddha suggest one cultivate discipline? Man, that's important. And, you know, I could be wrong, but my guess is you and maybe a few other people in this room might have difficulty with cultivating discipline. Or you're just asking for a friend. Asking for a friend. Well, let your friend know that, you know, discipline, I think of discipline as right effort and diligence, effort, discipline, all of these around. You look at the 6 paramitas: generosity, morality, patience, diligence, right? The great effort. And I think when I look at Buddhist teachings, what's fascinating to me is that even in the Four Noble Truths, we think of things as like this, the causal relationship, like cause and effect. So the first noble truth, which I just said, is life is filled with suffering. And then he says the cause of it. Then the third thing is nirvana, that's the ending of suffering. And then there's the cause of it. And it's a weird thing I pondered for a long time about the way he introduced those teachings. And I bring that up because when I think about Buddhist teachings with the precept and things that cause us to create harm for ourselves and others, something like discipline, training the mind, disciplining the mind, right? Making wise choices as opposed to foolish choices, which by foolish I mean choices that can harm us or harm others. Look at what happens when we don't make wise choices. Based on the facial reaction I just saw from you, it's a little painful, right? I mean, we know usually, even though we might say I wasn't thinking or I didn't know, or it was the next day, we're like, damn, I shouldn't have done that, you know? But very often we know, before, during, and after, when we are doing things that are going to cause harm to self and others. And so discipline is learning to do things that don't cause harm to self and others. Physical, mental, emotional, whatever it might be, on a simple scale or a large scale, as far as the harm that we cause. So to cultivate discipline, look at the impact that we have, the effect we have when we harm ourselves or others. It hurts, right? I mean, have you ever done things that hurt yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally? It doesn't feel good. And you've done things to hurt others physically, mentally, emotionally. It also doesn't feel good. We've all been there. So if you want to cultivate discipline, focus on the pain. The pain of what happens when we lack discipline. Yeah. I mean, for me as a practitioner, that still motivates and inspires me to this day. When I focus on how much pain I've caused others, how much pain I've caused myself, that motivates, inspires, literally forces me to continue to cultivate discipline so I don't repeat the same things that caused so much harm. And it's almost, I don't mean this in the way it might sound, but it's almost out of fear. Like, I don't want to cause that pain anymore. In self or others. And discipline will come into play. What else? Yeah.
I think at the end of your talk, you were saying how, I don't know if you were saying you get to a point of just being content, or I don't know if it was the purpose of just being content and happy with what you have. And I try to think about in your journey of meditating and getting to a point of peace and happiness within yourself and contentment, what sort of drove you to start a temple in the first place, with all the other temples that could be out there, and how come you weren't just content with what was at that point?
When you say content with what was, explain that last part a little bit again.
Content with,
When you say what was, what do you mean?
with all the Buddhist practice out there, all the learning that you've already acquired, and all the ideas that you've come to, and to find your own happiness. Why do anything else?
Because you were miserable and you were suffering. That's why. That's what motivated me. What motivated me initially was I was miserable and I was suffering. And I get totally, and great question. I just want to touch on it, and only because I didn't take knowing you a little bit that you mean this word this way, but I just want to clarify for anyone. For me, I wouldn't use the word content, because like when I think of content, I don't think excited. And for me, life is exciting. This is exciting. So content, to me, again, it's just semantics here, but content sounds like boring. Like, oh, I'm just going to be content with having nothing, right? Like, I'm excited to be that way. And what motivated me literally to start a place like this 17 years ago was, well, two things. One, wasn't my choice. I told my master I don't ever want to leave and I want to stay in Taiwan and become a monk and live here forever. After she asked me how I was doing, and that was my answer. And she said, wonderful, I'm so happy for you. It's time for you to leave. So, she's the one who said, go do this. She said, you need to go back to where you're from and figure out how to introduce this practice to people. And at that time I was like, what? No, I'm the one who's suffering. I must stay here. I must figure out all my problems. I must figure out why I'm so depressed and angry all the time. And she said, stop trying to figure that shit out and go help people. And in that process, there was no longer anything to figure out. The simple answer to all this is stop thinking about yourself. Stop thinking that you have to figure out your problems. Stop thinking that you have problems. You don't have problems. You have tremendous privilege. And when you realize that, you'll stop thinking about yourself. And you'll go help people. And then you wake up one day and you realize, oh, wait, I'm happy. And I'm excited to be alive. Or you can spend the next 50 years trying to figure out your shit. Choice is yours. Red pill, blue pill. Other questions? Yeah. Hi, Connie. Yes.
Hi, what do you do with anger?
Oh.
I have a loved one who is hurt very deeply by someone else. And it's very raw and that's
Yeah.
the question.
So the question was, for those who maybe didn't hear it and for those virtual, what do you do with anger? You have a loved one who was hurt very deeply recently. What do you do with that? I think, the first thing with any emotion that arises is first and foremost for you to really honor, respect, appreciate, and be okay with the fact that that emotion is there. Very often, and again, different people, different schools of thought, different philosophies, psychologies, religions, but my approach from Buddhism is to see the emotion and to feel it. This is anger. This isn't even addressing your question yet, but I think this is the first step. And be okay with it. Because very often in Buddhism, we call it the second arrow. Say the emotion of anger arises. I mean, I spent 25 years of my life angry, so it's something I connect with really deeply, right? And the first arrow is the anger. Then often with anger, the second arrow can come, well, now I'm sad because I'm angry all the time. Now I'm angry and sad. Now that I'm angry and sad, now I'm depressed. Now I'm angry, sad, and depressed. And now that I'm angry, sad, and depressed, I'm anxious that this is never going to go away. And now I'm angry and I'm sad and I'm depressed and I'm anxious. All from the initial thought of feeling, I should say, an emotion of anger. So just see the anger as an emotion, as a feeling, and understand the impermanence of it. Buddhist teachings on impermanence is like the be all end all for everything. It's like the answer solves all our problems that don't exist anyways. Because what impermanence teaches us is that, are you always going to be this angry? No. I know that doesn't seem that way right now, because like you said, it's very new, very raw, very fresh. So to think that you won't, like someday, you truly may not even be angry at all at what's going on right now. It doesn't mean whatever happened is good. It doesn't excuse it, doesn't make it okay, it doesn't justify it, doesn't make it right. And it doesn't mean other people aren't suffering. But I'm still talking about you right now, because this is where it begins, understanding that you have this anger. And it will go away. And if you know that it will go away, it will often alter things you might do during these next few days and weeks. I don't know about you, but when I was angry, the choices I made weren't usually too smart, because they were coming from anger, not from love. Thich Nhat Hanh's beautiful teachings, right? Martin Luther King, all the wonderful spiritual religious leaders come from a place of love. And truly, if we look at anger, it's because of love. We're so angry because of loved ones have been hurt. So it's this deep, deep love that's causing this deep pain. Try to come back to understanding it'll change, and it'll help what you do next. Now, the next step after that is to understand that the people who caused the pain. So again, I don't know details, I don't need to know details, but let's just say someone hurt someone that you love very much, and you're very angry at the someone over here who hurt the someone that you love very much. Have you ever hurt someone? Pretty badly? Yeah. Didn't want to do it, didn't mean to do it, probably regret it, wish you hadn't done it. We've all been there. And when we hurt people, it's typically because we're angry, or we were hurting, or we were having moments of just lack of discipline, right? We weren't doing what we should do. And so we did things that hurt people. Does that mean we're a terrible person? No. We shouldn't hate ourselves for doing things that we shouldn't have done. We should understand we made mistakes and we hurt people and it sucks. So we should treat ourselves that way and understand that we too could hurt people deeply. This is where compassion comes in, and wisdom. The two wings of Buddhism, wisdom and compassion. Compassion says, I'm going to love myself for the mistakes I've made and know that I hurt people. And forgiving myself doesn't make what I did right. But I'm going to have compassion for myself. And if I can do that, then I can have hopefully the wisdom to say, okay, now I'm going back to this person over here who hurt your loved one. I've been there. I've made mistakes. Maybe not the exact same things, but they are me. I am them. I'm not suggesting you run home and give them a hug and say, thanks for hurting my loved one. You're not quite ready for that yet. No time soon. But what they did was not okay, I'm sure. I'm guessing, I'm assuming. And they have to carry that pain, as does the loved one. But your anger towards that mess will not help anything. My guess is in situations like that, what both parties need, both people need, is not more anger and hatred and frustration and disappointment. It's love and understanding and care.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Not easy at all. So I can say it very easily, but then to put it into life is really difficult. But come back to impermanence. It'll change. Yeah.
What do you know now that you wish you would have known at the beginning?
You mean like when I was born?
Like when you first started this practice?
Because I was with a 9-week-old baby today, and it was really kind of cool to see a 9-week-old baby. Yeah, like, oh my God, like just 9 weeks, you know? What was the question? What do I wish I'd known when I first started this practice that I know now? That I think that at least what's, the first thing comes to my mind right now is everything changes. Your entire life is nothing of what you ever thought it would be, ever. And to completely enjoy working on having absolutely no control over anything. The practice of surrendering control is incredibly liberating. But when I started this 20 years ago, if somebody said to me, you need to let go of control of everything in your life, I probably would have punched him. You know? So, yeah. Yeah. Thanks. What else? Do one more question before we wrap up.
A couple times when you were talking, and I agree with the things that you said and appreciate them, but they sound like absolutes.
Mm.
You know, you say things that this is the way it is, this is gonna happen. And I guess, is that just from your experience? Like, is that just true for you and you're sharing that with us, or is that written somewhere? Is that actually,
I appreciate the question. The question is, in things that I've shared, and not that you disagree with them, but you said that I've shared them as if they're absolutes, which is interesting because in my practice and my theory, I don't think anything is absolute. So my question back to you would be give me an example of what, something I said that, and then the last part of your question was, is it absolutes or is that just my experience? I mean, everything is just my experience. And even that is an illusion. Even my perception of my experience isn't my experience. So, but yeah, can you give me an example of like?
So I guess, let's see an example when someone asked, the anger question.
Yeah.
It was like, I mean, obviously, I believe that anger is not gonna be there forever, but you were like, it's not,
Yeah.
And there was like another time when you were answering the question about, discipline.
Yeah.
You said something, and I don't know the exact words, but it sounded so absolute, and I believe you, and I trust you, and I.
Oh, don't believe me, don't trust me. That sounded very absolute. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe you right now.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I hear. Yeah, I mean, and I appreciate the two examples about the anger that I made it sound as if it was absolute that it wouldn't be there forever, or the comment about the discipline that absolute that it would change. Nothing is absolute. So I mean, I'm a very, obviously you can probably tell, very passionate individual, and I take this practice very seriously because my experience is it's been a life-changing thing, and I've been around it for so long and seen the same in others. But I don't believe that anything is absolute. And I also believe that, the Buddhist teachings on everything is an illusion. I mean, it's all just our perception. So even if I say and I've responded to similar questions probably 1,000 times around, dealing with anger towards loved ones or personal situations. And I think, in that moment, I choose to say the anger won't be there forever. And that sounds definitely absolute. It's powerful. But to me, it just sounds so much better than like, you're going to be angry your whole life, which is also an absolute and also possible. So the truth ultimately is, I have no idea. Connie may be angry at this her whole life, and she may not. I have no idea. Truly. What I can tell you about Buddha's teachings is that the Buddha is saying, right? He didn't say, believe this stuff just because he said it. He was very clear. I don't know how new you are to Buddhist stuff, but he was very clear. Are you like newer? Yeah. So he was very clear that he didn't want you to believe in him just because he was saying it. He was very clear. He wasn't a guy. He wasn't some he was just some dude who suffered and figured out how to suffer less. And he spoke very clearly about these teachings and said, try them. And if they work for you, beautiful. If not, abandon them. And so it's important to understand that the way from Buddhist teachings to overcome anger is with the practice of compassion. Right? The three poisons, the second noble truth, they call greed, anger, ignorance. And so he said, I'll close with this thought. He said, if you want to overcome greed, practice generosity. If you want to overcome anger, practice compassion. And if you want to overcome ignorance, practice wisdom. So, but nothing is guaranteed. I have found in my experience, dealing with lots of anger, that the practice of compassion works. But some of you may practice compassion and get more angry, and you can try it. But yeah, no, I appreciate you pointing it out. I definitely no absolutes. The only thing the Buddha taught that we are guaranteed, he said, once we are born, if we are born, we are guaranteed to age, to have sickness, and to die. That was it. Everything else, poof, who knows? So yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah. I will think of that question every single time that I speak of. I'm serious. I got shit still in my head from somebody that somebody said 12 years ago. So that one person that.
I like the absolutes, it's comforting.
Okay. Don't confuse me now. I'm trying to learn here. You're messing with me. No, but very seriously, last final thought is so many years ago, after meditation, I used to always say, recognize the quiet, peaceful feeling you have, whatever. And afterwards, someone raised their hand and they said, does anyone else feel like there's 1,000 knives in their head? And I completely altered what I said after meditation, because I realized that not everybody feels quiet, peaceful, and happy after meditation. Maybe we feel worse. So now I just say, pay attention to how you feel. You're on your own. It's okay. All right, so we're going to close on that. We'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. All right, before you all head out, our Dharma Bum host Eddie has a few quick announcements. And also, we're looking for a host for Monday nights now as well. So if anybody thinks they can fill this role that Eddie is about to do right now, let me know.
Pretty easy. Hello, everyone. I'm tonight's host, Eddie. We opened the Dharma Bum Temple 17 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and are not looking for students. They're simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice. Every night, we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone with addiction, and our food redistribution program is every Thursday at 5 p.m. We have classes and programs every day, and everything we offer here is always free. The full schedule is on our website and also posted in the entryway above the shoe rack. We have a lending library. If you see a book you like, feel free to borrow it and then bring it back whenever you are done with it. Please straighten your seat or cushion before you head out. If a few people could stay to close and latch the windows, that would be helpful. Thank you for being here. We wish you well and hope to see you all again.
Thank you all.
Nice to have you.